Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Shang. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. On November 25th, the spokesperson for the Southern Theater Command of the People's Liberation Army, Tian Junli, provided details during a press conference. As part of the annual training plan, the Army units of the Southern Theater Command commenced real-world combat exercise on November 25th. These exercises unfolded on the Chinese side of the border with Myanmar and aimed to assess the Theater Command's capabilities in swift mobilization, border control, and firepower. The forces of the Theater Command remain in a constant state of readiness to handle various unforeseen circumstances with a resolute commitment to safeguarding national sovereignty, border stability, and the safety of the people's lives and property. This news has garnered global media attention as it goes beyond a routine military exercise. It entails live-fire military drills near the China-Myanmar border, indicating a heightened state of potential conflict between the two nations. The situation suggests that a war between China and Myanmar could erupt imminently. Hence, this marks a major development, and as international mainstream media covers the incident, there is a collective understanding that it represents a war threat emanating from the Chinese Communist Party. This holds significant implications, possibly indicating the first instance of external warfare under Xi Jinping's leadership. Unlike previous border clashes between China and India that involved batons and fell short of a full-fledged war, this event exhibits all the indications of a potential eruption of real warfare. Therefore, it merits heightened scrutiny from the global community. Why is the CCP intensifying conflicts and approaching the brink of war? Public opinion generally attributes this to the burning of a Chinese train on November 23rd. On that day, an explosion and fire erupted at a freight station in the northern Golden Triangle port near the China-Myanmar border. Numerous trucks were parked at the location, many of which caught fire, resulting in the incineration of cargo. These goods on these trucks originated from China, and the casualties were reported. The CCP is deeply dissatisfied with this incident, while Myanmar authorities assert it was not orchestrated by them, but rather by insurgent elements. Regardless of the perpetrator, China perceives the Myanmar military government as tolerating attacks on Chinese convoys. The CCP's decision to conduct live-fire military exercises and the threat of war are considered a consequence of heightened tensions between China and Myanmar. What led to the heightened tension and the near-war situation between the Myanmar authorities and the Chinese Communist Party? The conflicts and the recent developments expressing Myanmar's strong discontent with the CCP have been somewhat neglected by international media. Allow me to shed light on these instances, providing insight into the escalating conflict between the Myanmar government and the CCP. Starting on November 20th, Myanmar's official newspaper quoted Major General Looming, the military government spokesperson, who portrayed the 1027 operation that began on October 27th in northern Shan state as an invaders' invasive war. Just 2 days earlier, on November 17th, Looming had suggested foreign involvement without specifying the country. On that same day, supporters of the Myanmar military aligned with ethnic nationalist groups staged a protest in Yangon, marching from City Hall to the Chinese embassy. They chanted anti-China slogans demanding an end to Chinese interference in Myanmar's internal affairs and support for ethnic armed groups in the north. These anti-China activities also occurred simultaneously in Naypyidaw. The official stance indicates a significant development in Sino-Myanmar relations, with the Myanmar government viewing the attacks by northern ethnic armed groups as supported by the Chinese Communist Party. Consequently, Myanmar sees it as a serious invasion war initiated by the CCP. Let's delve into the nature of the 1027 operation. The Operation 1027 was launched on October 27th by the Three Brotherhood Alliance, aka 3BTA, which comprises the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, the Tang An National Liberation Army, and the Arakan Army. Its goal is to combat the junta's armed forces and allied militias in northern Shan state, close to the Myanmar-China border. The operation has several military goals. In a statement announcing its offensive, the 3BTA said that the operation was driven by our collective desire to safeguard the lives of civilians, assert our right of self-defense, maintain control of our territory, and respond resolutely to ongoing artillery attacks and airstrikes from the Myanmar military. It added that it was dedicated to eradicating the oppressive military dictatorship, a shared aspiration of the entire Myanmar populace. The 3BTA said that it was also intended to suppress the escalating instance of online gambling and fraud throughout the China-Myanmar border region, and to clamp down on the criminal syndicates and the junta-affiliated militias that are responsible for them. Presently, there is a stark contrast in the reporting of the operation between Chinese and international media. First, let's examine the Chinese narrative. Chinese reports are straightforward, stating that the Three Brotherhood Alliance responded to the CCP's call to combat telecom fraud operations. This alliance initiated a military offensive to combat electronic fraud and dismantle the protective network behind it. Their mission expanded from targeting the so-called four major families and eradicating telecom fraud to launching an attack on the Myanmar military government. As part of this operation on October 31st, the Three Brothers Alliance assaulted a Myanmar army camp, resulting in casualties, including the commander of the 387th Battalion. The Myanmar army responded with aerial bombings in the southern La Zai region. Initially focused on telecom fraud, the 1027 operation was transformed into a military offensive against the Myanmar military government, involving the occupation of key military installations in northern Myanmar. This transformation has led the Myanmar military government to perceive it as an invasion. How did the military strength of ethnic minority forces in northern Myanmar suddenly rise to the point of defeating the Myanmar government army? This information is openly discussed on Chinese social media platforms. According to rebel forces in northern Myanmar, they claim to have unexpectedly discovered a substantial cache of advanced weapons in the forest. Though not explicitly stated, it is widely understood that these weapons were supplied by the Chinese Communist Party. While the initial provision of weaponry was ostensibly for dismantling telecom fraud bases known as the scam call centers, later attacks were directed towards the Myanmar military. This development has become the primary cause for the growing hostility and the rift between the Myanmar military government and the CCP. Now let's delve into how Western media perceives the 1027 operation and the ongoing tensions between Myanmar and the Chinese Communist Party. An article featured in a US diplomatic magazine offers an interpretation of the 1027 operation that starkly contrasts with Chinese public opinion and information disclosed by the Myanmar military. The origin of the Western media's information remains unclear, but their understanding of the 1027 operation frames it as a nationalist movement against the military government. They contend that this coordinated effort is a response to the persecution of Aung San Suu Kyi, geared towards reinstating the elected government, thereby characterizing it as an internal conflict within Myanmar. This article from the diplomatic magazine has become the authoritative account of the internal conflict in Myanmar for Western media, being provided by a professional think tank. From this perspective, they seem to have misconstrued the nature of the 1027 operation, the role of the CCP, and have not reflected the Myanmar government's assertion that the 1027 operation constitutes an invasion war initiated by the CCP. This peculiar phenomenon suggests a potential lack of understanding or reluctance to comprehend this region by Western media. Consequently, upon hearing about a conflict in Myanmar, they immediately associated with Aung San Suu Kyi's supporters aiming to confront the military government for the restoration of the elected government, leading to a significant misunderstanding of the situation. Based on the analysis above, taking into account the live-fire military drills conducted by the Southern Theater Command of the Chinese Communist Party and the Myanmar government's depiction of the situation as an invasion war, it appears that Xi Jinping is poised on the verge of initiating his first external war a decade into his leadership. The potential risks associated with such a conflict are unmistakable. What motivates Xi Jinping to consider Myanmar for an external military engagement? There are likely at least two underlying reasons. The first reason lies in Xi Jinping's decade-long promotion of populism and the cultivation of a sense of nationalistic pride on a global stage. Despite consistently highlighting major power diplomacy, projecting a strong national image, and showcasing military strength, Xi Jinping has yet to participate in a significant military engagement. This discrepancy creates an inclination, both within the military and for Xi Jinping personally, towards a potential impulse for war. This factor stands as the primary catalyst for the escalating tensions, bringing China and Myanmar to the brink of war. The second reason stems from Xi Jinping's inspiration drawn from allies like Russia and Iran. Despite Vladimir Putin's limited direct influence globally, he leverages unconventional strategies such as the Wagner Group and the military interventions in Syria. Similarly, Iran, facing formidable adversaries like the United States and Israel, combines negotiation with support for influential players in the Middle East, such as the Houthi rebels in Yemen and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Xi Jinping, influenced by these examples, seeks to expand the far-reaching impact of his military. By clandestinely arming rebel groups in northern Myanmar, these militias, under the command of the Chinese Communist Party, initially assisted in eradicating telecom fraud hubs and capturing individuals wanted by the CCP. However, the military actions didn't cease with the elimination of fraud networks. Instead, these militias redirected their attacks towards the Myanmar junta government. While the CCP possesses the capability to seize these operations as an arms supplier, it has chosen not to so, continuously furnishing weapons. Thus, the CCP's military infiltration into the Myanmar is not a response to an immediate security threat, but a calculated gamble by Xi Jinping to play a more direct role, akin to how Hezbollah aligns with Iran and the Wagner Group aligns with Putin. Hence, with the Myanmar military government firmly stating that this constitutes a form of military aggression by the Chinese Communist Party, it positions itself at the forefront of a military standoff with the CCP. The imminent outbreak of this war underscores the importance of sharing this news, emphasizing the potential recklessness of Xi Jinping. Currently, when searching for keywords related to territory reclamation on the Chinese TikTok, the initial results are not centered around reclaiming Taiwan, but rather emphasize the reclamation of Myanmar. Within the domestic Chinese public opinion, there is a speculation indicating the necessity of establishing a maritime outlet in Yunnan. Additionally, there are unverified rumors suggesting that Xi Jinping, during the APEC meeting, reached an understanding with Biden, expressing a commitment to refrain from actions in Taiwan while expressing intentions to take actions in Myanmar, with an understanding that there would be no interference from the US. Propelling military action against Myanmar not only contributes to Xi Jinping's military accolades, but also might be intended to redirect domestic pressures, albeit with limitations. Although warfare can generate some job opportunities and alleviate certain strains, it falls short of resolving fundamental issues. Lingering problems like numerous stalled construction projects and extensive local debts persist in China. Hence, the prospect of using the Myanmar conflict to substantially redirect internal contradictions seems constrained. The primary challenge in launching a military operation against Myanmar is the lack of a clear justification. The Chinese Communist Party supports the Myanmar Democratic Alliance Army, rooted in the Communist Party of Burma, in opposition to Myanmar's government forces, essentially backing rebels. The CCP's covert support for the Communist Party of Burma has already garnered significant international criticism in the region, fueling anti-China sentiments in Myanmar. Formally declaring war against Myanmar's government forces would be seen as an invasion of a sovereign nation, inviting international sanctions. Furthermore, supporting local militias to overthrow a government contradicts the CCP's consistent stance and carries negative implications domestically. However, considering our subject is Xi Jinping, whose thought process is peculiar, we cannot rule out the possibility of him taking a risky approach and invading Myanmar. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly. Until then, be well.